Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Good morning to everyone. At this time, we want to call this meeting to order, CPS Energy Board of Trustees meeting to be held on September the 6th, 2022 at 9 a.m. Time is 9 a.m. This time, can we, Ms. Ramirez, confirm the quorum?
Yes, sir. We have Vice Chair Gonzalez, Trustee Steen, the Mayor, Trustee Romero, and yourself. We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. At this time, we will have our safety message, invocation, and pledge of allegiance by Mr. Rick Luna.
Okay, good morning, trustees. First, I'll review our evacuation procedures. We wanted to remind you that we are prepared to be safe in the event of an emergency. If you hear the fire alarm, follow the instructions announced through the PA system. If asked to evacuate, use the glass door exiting out of the boardroom to the outside. If that door is blocked, use the back door. Verbally alert others in the room and evacuate. Then move to the main parking lot in front of the building or the AT&T parking lot over the McCullough-Brooklyn Bridge. In the event of a situation like this, our security team will be monitoring the situation and will notify the appropriate emergency services and team members. We also have employees nearby who are trained to administer first aid if needed. Safety is a top priority at CPS Energy, and while we hope this information is never needed, we want to be sure we are always ready. Will you please now stand with me for an invocation? For a quiet moment, I invite you to express gratitude for your health, for our families and our friends, and for the opportunity to come together as a community today. We honor our trustees for the responsibility they bear. We wish them success today in making decisions with wisdom and humility. We are reminded that we are all stewards acting on behalf of our customers. May we accomplish our goals together with that singular purpose in mind. And now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over for public comments. Ms. Carpenter.
Good morning. Public comment provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts on any of this meeting's posted agenda items. We'll invite speakers to the podium, and they may only address the board on related business. Speakers should state their first and last name, the organization or group they represent, and the agenda item they are going to speak about. For this meeting, we have 8 speakers. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak, and Thomas will cue the timer for us. Our first speaker is Juventino Gonzalez, followed by Patricia Major. Our next speaker is Patricia Major.
Good morning, and I want to thank the trustees for their service. I know it's a big commitment. I'm a retiree from City Public Service. I retired in 2002, and I went on to a couple of other careers and then left the employment in 2014. But I wanted to speak about the agenda item involving the reports from the committees of the board, especially the one 10B, which is the Employee Benefits Oversight Committee. As an employee, we meet with retirees as a group and individually and talk about different issues. And we've been concerned about the benefit plans in the administrative committee ever since the May of 2021. And that's when some changes occurred in the administrative committee makeup. And after that time, we received 2 reports from 2020 and 2019 for the plan benefit summaries to participants for the year. That would be employees and retirees. And essentially what we're saying is that in this report today, it's going to talk about gaps and shortfalls in the area of people performance policies, practices, and controls. I'm a CPA. I've been an internal audit director to three different organizations. And when I see words like that, I'm concerned. We've been talking about the lack of communication and transparency with the retirees in terms of what's happening with the administrative committee. We feel like that because we represent 45% of the plan participants, a number of us feel like we should get more than one seat on the administrative committee itself. We would like for you to consider that. And also, we know in the investment policy, there is a line item under governance that says that you will communicate and be as transparent as possible with several stakeholders, including the retirees. We'd ask for you to do that. And also, one of the things we've had an issue about is these annual reports. The one for 2021 came to us in August 22, which is about 5 months after the audit was completed. It looks like I'm not going to be able to speak on the other items, but thank you for this experience. And if you'd like to talk with me more about what our concerns are, I have another retiree with me today, Lou Fleckenstein, who used to be the administrator over the plans when they first started in the 80s. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Eva Galvan, followed by Jose Perez. All right. Is there a Mr. Jose Perez?
Good morning, Chairman and Trustees of CPS Energy. Thank you for the opportunity to share thoughts about your pending decision to appoint a general manager at CPS Energy. My name is Jose Perez, and I'm President and CEO of Hispanics in Energy, a national organization driving Hispanic inclusion in America's energy sector. In addition, I am ambassador to the Department of Energy and a member of the National Petroleum Council. My role is crucial to help government leaders from all levels figure out how to realize equity for Hispanics in all the above energy. We focus on equity in business contracting, jobs, and corporate governance and C-suite. 19% of Americans are Hispanic, or about 63 million people, the largest minority group in America. Here in Barr County, Hispanics make up 62% of the 2 million people. In San Antonio, it is 65%. However, in its 162 wondrous history, CPS Energy has never had a Hispanic general manager. From our perspective, Hispanic ratepayers have been helping to build CPS Energy's $12 billion in assets. This governing body has an outstanding individual performing as an interim general manager for CPS, who also happens to be the first Hispanic to serve in that capacity. Therefore, it makes sense for CPS Energy Board of Trustees to do the right thing and select Mr. Rudy Garza as your next general manager. I appreciate your consideration of my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Dr. Meredith McGuire.
Hello. Hello, I'm Dr. Meredith McGuire, co-chair of the Conservation Committee of the local Sierra Club. I'm addressing several things, and I'm going to try to make it very quick. I'm very concerned, first of all, about the extent to which, up till now, CPS has been routinely misrepresenting to its own board some of the data that the board needs to have. And I have given you a handout that shows some of the examples of the misinformation that was passed on to the board or to the city council in the past. It's really important that the truth comes to the board, the truth comes to the city council so that they can make their wise and informed decisions. I think the other thing you need to do is to make sure that the rate structure is changed dramatically. Right now, CPS has declining tiered rates, and that ends up with a huge disproportionate burden being put on the people who use the least amount of energy. And it also makes it difficult to find a way to make sure that the businesses that do use a lot are actually paying their fair share. I have to suggest that I hope that you will have a chance to talk to me individually so I can explain some more about this. But just take, for example, the fact that, excuse me, keep in mind that the rates for the residential ratepayers who are using less than a fairly low amount have been raised so high that the residential ratepayers are being forced to pick up the costs that should have been borne by the, there is a rate out there that is called RCE. It is for the heaviest users, and it actually gives them a greatly reduced price. So there should be no residential ratepayer who is using that much energy. I'm talking about a lot. And I can give you some data from the RAC committee's information. That's a serious thing. And there are other rate issues. We need rates that promote a new kind of a power grid. And I think that that has to include conservation, but it also has to include investment in distributed energy and especially in battery storage. So that's the reason why that little grid picture on the back is, that's where we need to get San Antonio to go. And I think that the sooner we can accomplish that, thank you, by the way, the weatherization stuff is going to go a long way toward improving that too. But
you.
we really need that. And so please do look me up. I'll be happy to talk to you more about what the kind of good rate structure would take. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Richard Perez, followed by Henrietta LaGrange.
Good morning, Chairman Mackey and members of the CPS Energy Board of Trustees. My name is Richard Perez, and I am the President and CEO of the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. I am proud to be here this morning to offer my support and the support of the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce and our 1,650 members for Rudy Garza to be named as President and CEO of CPS Energy. Rudy has more than 25 years as a leader in the electric and gas industry, and during his 10 years at CPS Energy, has held a variety of positions at the utility, giving him a broad view into the inner workings of the organization and earning him the respect and support of the CPS Energy team. Having served as the Chief Customer and Stakeholder Engagement Officer position prior to stepping into the role of Interim President and CEO, Rudy understands the needs of our community and the importance of working and communicating with CPS Energy's residential and business customers. In fact, the business community has appreciated his focus and emphasis on communication and transparency. He has met with business leaders and community leaders and has listened to input and feedback and has taken appropriate action. There is no doubt in my mind that he has the experience and leadership prowess to be the official leader of CPS Energy, and he has our full support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Henrietta LaGrange, followed by Alan Montemayor.
Thank you, and good morning, Board of Trustees, Mayor Nurnberg, Rudy, glad to see you. One of my main reasons to be here is I'm glad that millions of dollars are going to the city of San Antonio. But I would like to, I'm glad the mayor is here because I think I'm going to focus on him too. I think that what the money that you want to give to the ratepayers is not, unless you're giving me 10,000, then I'll accept it. But I feel that the money should go into weatherization and in cutting trees, because I've seen the west side, I've seen where I live, and I think the money, more money should be put in those projects. But also, I feel like, and I'm glad to hear that you've stopped the search, because I was gonna tell you You need to do it now. And I know that my time here is short, but I have valued the time that Mr. Garza has given to the community, because I know his work is harder than anybody thinks, and I'll tell you why. Because he didn't inherit a clean plate. He inherited more work than anybody thinks that is there. And I know, Dr. Mackey, you smiling, and I know you know how hard it is, and Francine, all of you. And I think we need to give him, because of what he inherited, and more work. How about more money? Thank you. And I do have something for Mr. Garza.
Thank you for your input. Our next speaker is Alan Montemayor.
Good morning. I'm Alan Montemayor. You guys know me. I'm chairman of the Alamo Group of the Sierra Club and represent our 3,000 members here in the greater San Antonio area. In the next few months, you guys will be faced with a decision about closing down the spruce power plants. There's a number of options that are being modeled right now, and you will have the opportunity to pick between those models about how we move forward with the closure of those plants. I urge you at the outset to do that in a prompt fashion and benefit the citizens of San Antonio from an air quality standpoint, from a health standpoint, and from a fiscal standpoint. One of the options that you have will be to convert Spruce 2 to natural gas. I ask that you not do that. I would like to refer to one of the handouts I have for you. This is a bill insert from our bills entitled "The Rising Cost of Natural Gas Impacts Energy Bills." It says current natural gas prices are the highest in almost 15 years. Second paragraph, we work diligently to protect our community from rising natural gas prices. Third paragraph, residential electric and gas bills for March 2022 were approximately 22% higher than bills in March 2021. Why would you consider converting that plant to natural gas? I understand the exigencies of having to have a base load power supply. However, I would really like to see you seriously consider going fully renewable on these choices. The second document that I have in front of you is an idea that I've been promulgating for some years, entitled "Opportunity for a World-Class Solar Array at the H2 Oaks Facility." This would require cooperation with SAWS and the City of San Antonio. But if you guys will read through that one-page document and then discuss what it entails for City of San Antonio and customers, I think it's a win-win situation. So please move forward quickly with getting rid of coal, avoid natural gas, end the subsidies to convert from electric to natural gas. This is ridiculous when we're trying to move away from natural gas, not only from the leakage standpoint, but from the global warming standpoint. The mayor, in his first act as mayor, got us back into the Paris Accords. Please move forward with that and move forward with the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your input. That was our last registered speaker. I will now turn the meeting back to Chair Dr. Mackey.
I'd like to thank all the speakers for their comments this morning. And as we move on to chair remarks, I've visited every plant, the nuclear plant, the spruce plants, and Rio Nogales plants, and got a chance to talk to the manager. I would ask that Mr. Garza, would you please have each manager at our next meeting in September? And I want them to talk about the winter and weatherized program, because I would like for everyone to hear what they have to say about that, and about the temporary and permanent structures, about the 2 seasons. And I would like to hear that directly from the managers on preparing for this winter. And that's all I have for chair comments. Turn it over. Next one would be interim CEO report, number 5.
Well, thank you, Chair Dr. Mackey, members of the board. I really appreciate all the continued support you've continued to provide to our organization. Go to the next slide, please. For my report today, I'm going to focus on a few key areas. Know that there's been a lot of talk in the media about, the City of San Antonio's budget process. I've had a couple of you ask me some questions about that, so I thought I'd cover it real briefly. Mayor's here, obviously, he's been in the middle of that conversation, and I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to ask any questions you may have. And then we're going to talk about just some activity at the federal level, some work I've been doing at the state level with the Public Utility Commission, some local work that we've been doing with our partners in the emergency management space, and then a couple of recognitions that I want to cover. So first off, it's no, secret that due to, a really, really hot May, June, and July, coupled with, increasingly high natural gas prices, as we saw natural gas prices hit $10 an MMBTU for the first time, maybe since 2005 timeframe. The city has seen some additional revenues that they're right now working through the process of determining what to do with. I have been directly connected to our city manager, Eric Walsh, and my team, because should the city decide, and ultimately through city council decide to do a couple of different things that they could do with it, it would involve CPS Energy, partnering with the city to make it happen. So we've been involved from the get-go, just from the perspective of what that means, for CPS Energy. And so one of the things that has been on the table is for the credit to be, given right back to CPS Energy's customers. I think the total, overage that the city has seen is somewhere around $75 million. The city has talked about giving back, somewhere between $40 and $50 million to customers that basically the policy implications are that they're giving it back in the very same manner that they got it. July 2022 was going to be the month under which the usage would calculate the credit. Based on what I'm seeing from the city's kind of process, I'm not sure we could get it done by October, but if they decide ultimately to move forward with the credit, I do think we could get it done probably in the November, December timeframe. They're still working through that process. I want to reiterate that this is not CPS Energy revenue. This is 14% that goes back to our city owner, and ultimately City Council has to decide what they want to do with this. One of the things that we do feel really good about is the additional contribution to the REAP program. The city has talked about increasing their contribution this year. We would do the same, and really it's to help those customers that we've been having a lot of conversations about customers who are past due in their balances. This will go a long way to help those customers who are still going to need the additional support. And I've also had a conversation with Judge Wolf about potentially the county following suit, with outside city customers and making an additional contribution. I've got to call Commissioner Rodriguez on that. So there is a benefit for our REAP program to continue to offer assistance. There's a lot of dialogue about what other alternatives could be part of that approach. And I believe that the city manager just walked in, that they will continue to have that conversation. The council will ultimately vote on their budget mid-September. And then we'll see what that means for the work we might have to do to program these dollars in whatever manner involves CPS Energy. So I did want to cover that, and we can come back to that for any questions when I finish our report here. I want to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, recently passed by Congress and signed by the President. There is a lot to unpack in that bill. We've been following really two key provisions that impact us. One is the ability for us, because of the way they've structured kind of direct pay tax credits, we could now start to own our own solar farms. Transition workforce that may be moving away from our coal operation to a clean energy, operation. And so that is really exciting. It's the first time that's ever been the case. We partner with the third party, private sector, partners to be able to take advantage of those tax credits and deliver solar and wind at the lowest possible cost for our customers, but now we might be able to actually get in that business under the same kind of pricing structure, which at the end of the day benefits our customers. And there's also quite a number of grant and loan programs. CPS Energy in the past has not been real aggressive in pursuing grants for all kinds of reasons. We are working to change that. I've tasked a number of folks inside the organization, primarily Kathy Garcia and Jonathan Tijerina, to build our capacity for going after federal and state grants. Most of these dollars will flow through actually the state of Texas. So we're going to be working to see what the IRA means for CPS Energy. But I did want to make note that is work that is going on. I will also give our city manager credit. He pulls together all of our local governmental entities every other week to talk about grant opportunities so that we're all putting our best foot forward with one voice in the community. I think it's as good as any community cooperation as I've seen in the grant space, and CPS Energy is at the table at those meetings. Every meeting we have somebody there. Next slide. I wanted to talk about some time I spent in July up in Austin, and I met with all the PUC commissioners. I also met with the new commissioner, Kathleen Jackson, who was actually, at the time I met with her at the Water Development Board, but she was appointed to the Public Utility Commission soon thereafter. That is a picture of my good friend, Commissioner Lori Cobos, and I after our meeting. But we really had a robust conversation with all the commissioners about a lot of the good work that CPS Energy is doing in the space that the PUC and ERCOT are focused on right now. So I did want to mention that we are up there doing what we need to do to maintain that relationship, and it was a very, very good use of my time up in Austin that day. Joint exercise, I do want to talk about, and we do, a number of these a year. We had a full day exercise with 40 in-person participants at the EOC down at Brooks. We had 80 CPS Energy participants via WebEx. In any of these exercises, we will activate our incident management team, and they will go through the exercise as though it is real. In this case, the exercise really was focused on a major flooding incident with a dam breach. And what we learned from these opportunities to get together in a controlled exercise environment is really the gaps that exist that we need to continue to close. We heard during the emergency preparedness committee work that we had to communicate better. We had to work closer together to prepare for the worst and hopes that those days don't come. This is one of those examples, and I just want to thank our friends at COSA, at SAWS, Bexar County, and all the agencies who participate in this. Our team members learned a lot that day. I'm really proud of the fact that the San Antonio Business Journal has chosen to recognize CPS Energy as part of their Diversity and Inclusion Awards. I've continued to state that our leadership team is as diverse a leadership team as any leadership team in our industry. And this particular award recognizes the diversity in our leadership and the diversity amongst our board, which I would put up with any board in the country in terms of the perspectives that are offered up monthly at this board meeting. And there's a lot of really, I'm proud that CPS Energy is alongside some mainstay, organizations in our community. So this is a reflection of the work that we're trying to do to be a reflection of our community. And I'm really, really proud that the Business Journal chose to award CPS Energy this year. Finally, I wanted to, every month I recognize a different part of the organization. And today we're gonna focus on our customer strategy team, which is made up of close to 500 employees that do their work 24/7, 365 in support of our customers. These folks, they ensure that our meters are working, that we're taking phone calls, we're meeting with the customers where they are in the community, which is feedback I've received directly from council that we've got to try harder to reach those in the community who need us. They support everything from single-family homes to multifamily to the largest of businesses in our community. This year, our teams have visited nearly 60 different neighborhoods and knocked on over 3,500 doors to bring support directly to those customers in the community. In the month of July alone, our team sent out over 1.8 million messages to the community for weather-related updates, outage details, bill and payment reminders, and of course, collection activity, which has begun in full again. Despite the record temperatures, our team members worked closely to ensure that we were compliant with our terms and conditions and still managed our collection processes, disconnecting close to 700 accounts, all of which were reconnected in the month of July, which means that the customers actually proactively took action to get on payment plans and do what we need them to do to get caught up. We continue to find ways to support each customer, so when we have results have to result in disconnection of an account, we work really hard with each and every person to find the solution that fits their unique situation and gets their accounts back on track. This year, we've brought in an additional $5.3 million in revenue from late fees, which is nearly double what we've seen this time last year and over $1 million more than the year prior. We spent a lot of time around this board table talking about past due balances due to the pandemic impact on our economy and an extremely hot summer. Today, I'm recognizing a cross-section of our employees who work hard to address these issues and assist customers directly each and every day in our community. We appreciate your hard work and dedication. I believe we have a video, and then I'm going to recognize some employees in particular.
Hello, my name is Annette Lopez Solis, and I've come out here with San Antonio Public Service, and I've had a great, wonderful experience, and I thank all the individuals that are here working, helping. I mean, they took me by the hand, they coddled me, they helped me, and there's nothing they can change. I mean, whoever's here, I mean, I want to give y'all a great job, Thank you, and may y'all be safe, and God help everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah.
Just wanted to ask you, how did you learn about this event today?
Oh, I learned about it over the phone when I contacted CPS yesterday, and I spoke to an Alex. She was perfect. She's the one that told me, come out, they'll help you, and you'll get it done, and I got it done.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to come out and get the assistance. Now, is there anything we could be doing different or better in your opinion?
Oh, no. Y'all were great. Y'all were wonderful. Thank you for the experience, and I love y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and please stay safe.
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'm going to rattle off a few names here. And again, this is a cross-section of all of our customer team that all provides value in different ways. I'm going to start off with Patricia Banda. Through her 26 years of experience, Patricia served in the capacity of a lead to assist her peers, acting supervisor to assist with escalations, a teller to assist with processing customer payments, and mentor to all who add value to the team and organization. So Patricia. Oh, there we are, okay. Vernon Wilrich, where's Vernon? There's big Vernon. Vernon started his career at CPS Energy as a utility worker, as a team member in the distribution services department, and finally as an apprentice meter man with the electric meter shop, where he currently serves as foreman in the metering department. Vernon is planning his next adventure in his retirement, planned for November. So Vernon, thank you for being here, and congratulations on your upcoming retirement. Nick Bennett. Nick has been with CPS Energy for 4 years and is the interim manager of one of our key account management teams. Our key account customers are really that middle range business customer who also gets an account management experience. They can call members of our key account team who will help them with anything they need relative to their CPS Energy account. Keith Balcar. Keith? In the 28 years Keith has been with CPS Energy, he spent 5 years in the field before transitioning to underground engineering. Keith is currently assisting the military operations team as a military construction coordinator. And I can promise you that Keith earns his paycheck every day trying to keep up with our military accounts. That's one of our largest customers. Finally, Carlos Garza. Where's Carlos? Carlos has been with the company for 5.5 years. He joined the customer design and delivery team as a designer a year ago from the overhead construction department. And as you know, San Antonio has been one of the fastest growing communities in terms of new construction for a number of years now. I have been holding town halls with our customer design delivery team over the last few weeks, and I can promise you that they're working hard trying to keep up with the growth that's happening in San Antonio. So thank you very much for your service. And again, all of the employees that you see here are members of those relative teams under Deanna Hardwick and her leadership team. I want to thank you. Again, we talk about, all the time what it takes to get customers actually caught up and the process that we go through, when they can't get caught up and ultimately end up, in a disconnection situation. These are the employees every day who make it happen. Again, it's not Rudy Garza, that's making these things happen. It's the 500 employees and the other 3,000 that we have that work together every day to make it happen. And I think considering the conversations that we've been having, I think the recognition is absolutely timely and very much deserved. So thank you all, and certainly I'll give the board an opportunity. That is my report today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Garza, and we want to thank all the employees that are working hard, trying to help the community with lack of payment or insufficient in payments and things of that sort. Everybody needs a little help, and I want to thank you all for the job that you all are doing. And thank you, all of you all, for being here this morning. And thank you all very much. Before we move on to item number 6, we're moving on to item number 6, the monthly performance update. Mr. Corey. Huh? Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't look.
No, I just wanted to thank you all 3,500 employees, but the folks that are on the phones and in the face of the customer every single day, and some of the difficult conversations. When I look back there, I think about the fact that CPS Energy is different in large part because we're a publicly owned institution, and that's the difference maker right there. So thank you all very much for your dedication to our community. We're very, very proud of you.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to move to item number 6, our monthly performance update. Mr. Corey Kaczynski.
Thank you, Chair Dr. Mackey. Good morning, trustees. So today, we're at the 6-month mark for our fiscal year. So I'll be giving an update that summarizes our financial performance year to date and give a view of what we think the balance of the year will look like. We'll touch on some of the activities, as Rudy talked about, our past due receivables and what our action plan is there. Okay, so the high-level summary, which I think many of us have probably seen from some of the headlines, is that high fuel costs and extreme weather has driven higher total top-line revenue. But most of this higher revenue went to paying higher fuel expenses and city payment, both items which I'll note in a little more detail on following slides. Our net income and our repair and replacement deposits, they're slightly above plan year to date. And we are forecasting them to be generally on par at the end of the year, and we'll speak to that in a few slides as well. The two items that we're monitoring closely that we've talked about that may impact our cash position on the balance of the year is the past due receivables issue, which I'll highlight, and then wholesale margin, which we haven't talked too much about thus far this year, but I'll touch on that today. At the end of the day, looking forward, we anticipate our key financial metrics are still forecasted to be at acceptable levels. On the next slide, this is a very simple view of our year-to-date performance, and I think this may help answer some questions that have been out in the community the last couple of weeks. At the very top line, we're showing total revenue. This is all the revenue, operating, non-operating, and we're comparing that actual performance to our budgeted performance. And what you see and what you've heard is that top-line revenue is notably higher than our forecasted budget. Right, 1.47 billion was our forecast, 1.76 you see is our actual. That's close to $300 million in total top-line revenue. Sounds like a big number, but peeling back the onion, you see two component parts. That first one there is subtracting fuel and regulatory costs. This is mostly fuel. This is what the story has been about the last couple of months. We anticipated paying about 530 million at this point in the year, but we've actually paid 786 million. That's about 256 million more than we had thought and gets pulled out of that total top-line revenue. And then, of course, city payment, which we've talked about, and we're on a different fiscal year than the city, but for our fiscal year, year-to-date for the last 6 months, because the fuel prices have been higher and city payment is paid on top of that, our city payment's been about $30 million more than anticipated. And so if you're really looking at the core strength of CPS Energy from a financial standpoint, you want to look at that total there at the bottom. Is revenue available to cover our core business costs? This is everything other than fuel. This is us out in the field and so forth. And when you look at that, you see that our budgeted number was $748 million. Our actual was $753 million. You're talking about $5 million higher than we anticipated. And at this point in the year on $1.7 billion, that's pretty much on track. So I think this helps answer some of the questions we've had in the community of, are we seeing extra revenue? What are we doing with it? When you peel back the onion a little bit, you see that we're pretty much on track and on par for the year. So hopefully that's helpful. Then on the next slide is a full year view where we anticipate finishing our fiscal year. So this is 6 months of actual data plus 6 months of forecasted data, just to give a view. This has a little more detail than the previous slide, but it tells a story. And being at the midway mark, I'm going to tell the story here. But first, we'll draw your attention to the bottom like we typically do. You can see the net income at the bottom. We'd anticipated $77.2 million. Right? That was the number we had in our budget and the rate case. We think over to the right, we'll forecast about $69 million in net income. Okay, that's about $8 million less than we anticipated. Again, on a $3 billion budget, pretty much on track and on par. But how we got there is interesting, and it's important context, I think, for obviously the board and the community that's listening. So if you go back up to the top line, we see total revenue. Right? This is this equivalent top line we saw on the previous slide, but for the balance of the year. And you can see we anticipate having over $440 million additional total revenue. Again, that's a large number, but there's a story to be told. When you peel back our fuel and regulatory expense anticipated for the balance of the year, we think will be $326 million over forecast. You can see that variance in the far right. So when you look at revenue net, the second part of that story is our bad debt expense, which we've talked about. We did anticipate, as we were having our conversations about this budget and during the rate case, that we anticipate this year was going to be a little more normal operations in terms of resuming disconnects, customers paying. So we had budgeted about $10 million in bad debt expense. What we've seen thus far, for a variety of different reasons, is that hasn't turned out that we anticipated, and we are adjusting that forecast up to $50 million. Right, so this is a pull down from revenue, and you can see the variance there. That's close to $40 million additional bad debt expense that we're going to bake in. And still, when you get to the subtotal there, you see revenue net of fuel and net of bad debt expense of close to $1.9 billion. This is still $73.5 million more than we had forecasted. But the next line is something that we haven't talked about too much. It's wholesale revenue. How does this play into our total financial situation? We all know conceptually wholesale revenue is basically the extra power we have, and we sell into the ERCOT market and we make additional dollars on that. And that's a net benefit for our community because that's a dollar from the market that we don't have to raise from our customers. So the number to pay attention to is that wholesale revenue net of fuel number. So that subtotal, we'd anticipated that $50.1 million in our budget. So we baked that in as anticipated revenue and cash coming in the door. That's a pretty modest forecast, mind you. We're anticipating that number being notably less, $22 million for the balance of the year. Right? So it's notable, but it's not a surprise. We've talked about how our plants have had some issues this summer, and it's our plants running during this peak part of the year that we really make that additional margin. And you're not seeing that as much. The other big factor is, much like our core business, fuel expenses have gone up for our core business, and so have fuel expenses on the wholesale book. So that's eating into a margin as well. So that's a draw on our total revenue as well. The next thing on there, which we've talked about very briefly in other meetings, is non-operating revenue. So it'd be like interest revenue, things of that nature. That is slightly down relative to forecast. There are some non-cash mark-to-market items in there, but not a material line item that's really telling much of the story going on. The last part of this story, though, is where we forecast city payment to be at the end of the year. And again, this is notably more than forecast for all the reasons we've spoken about. And so now that you've gone on that journey with me, that subtotal we have right here is the same phrase that I used on the last slide. What's the revenue available to cover our core business? And when you look at the balance of the year, we actually think that we're going to be close to $20 million less than we had forecasted for revenue to cover our core business. And that's the difference between the 1524 and the 1505. But let's talk about those expenses. That very last line there before we total it, We anticipate our non-fuel expenses, right, this is everything else we have to do, being about $11 million below our forecast. So that's helpful. This is what our company typically does every year. We try and beat our forecast on spend, and this is it doing it. You know, a couple drivers there. We talked at the beginning of the year, we had some savings on some interest expense, and you know, our teams are doing a good job to manage that. So then you get to where we started, that net income for the year. We have a difference of about $8 million. Again, I would say for where we are in the year, a difference of $8 million on a revenue of $3.2 billion, pretty much on par for the year, despite the unfavorable bad debt expense and wholesale performance that we were talking about.
Or before you move on to the next slide, I see the budget, the forecast, and the variance. But what I'm looking for too, can you add in there, I want to see the actual. 6 month.
Right, okay.
6 month actual.
Well, so that would be on the previous slide, but this is summarized. That actual, what we can do, sir, for you is blow this format out into more detail, like the slide 5. But this column year to date, that the top line for actual revenue is $1.76 billion. Our revenue available to cover core business is $753 million. That's actually at the 6 month mark, which is baked into this forecast column over there. That's got those.
I understand that. I understand what you're talking about. It's great. It's wonderful.
Gotcha.
But I would like to see an actual in the last 2 slides.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
you got it.
By the way, I agree with that, and that's a good point.
Very good. Okay, on the next slide, I'm going to break down this conversation around cash that we've been discussing, and particularly our days cash on hand metric. I wanted to highlight just the component parts of how this calculation works and what the levers are that move it. So our cash balance on the left-hand side, you can see as of July 31st, we had forecasted $729 million. We actually have a larger cash balance, $762 million. And on the face of that, that sounds good. But putting it in context is really what the rest of this slide does. When you look at our daily operating expense, this is, it's our burn rate. This is what we spend on our business, our fuel, city payment, it's money going out the door. And we'd anticipated $4.9 million, but we're actually seeing $6.2 million in spend. So while our cash balances are going up, they're not going up as fast as the daily operating expenses. And so what you'll see in the metrics slide is our days cash on hand is 123. Now, there are 2 elements to this. One is just the seasonality that we talked about, but there's no denying it is different than the days cash on hand metric that we had forecasted of 149 days. So this is at our 6 month mark. The next slide.
Before you move on, I wanted to ask about this slide. So would you agree that if you had a higher numerator, your days cash on hand would be more favorable?
We had more cash coming in the door, yes, it would.
Right.
Yeah.
So if all our customer payments were current, wouldn't the days cash on hand be much closer to 150?
Yeah, so conceptually, we're paying 100% of our fuel bill, and we're not recovering 100% of our revenue from our customers, which is a driver that I will speak to in the next couple of slides.
And so I would say that having that blurb at the bottom, you're saying operating expenses are significantly higher, primarily due to fuel costs, which results in decreased days cash on hand. That respectfully, that's not telling the whole story.
Okay. I would say that the primary driver is the rate of those operating expenses going up. But your point is well taken, is a combination of both, quite frankly. So we'll acknowledge both, and we'll speak to both.
That was going to be my next question. If you could forecast based on your burn rate, back to what Mr. Steen is trying to prove, right? Your burn rate versus what if we had all our cash on hand, what would really be the difference if you continue that same trend of burn rate?
That would be the
Is
next
it a
slide.
significant or just a wash is really the question.
I think that our forecast shows that we'll finish at 163 days cash on hand at the end of the rate. So that builds in the future burn rate that you're talking about. And that number is forecasted down from where we began the year, which was 170. So we peeled off, a handful of days to get down to 163 in acknowledgement and recognition of the challenges we're facing. So at this point, that's the forecast, and that's the direct answer to that question about how we account for that future burn rate. Which is a good transition to this slide. The other 2 metrics on this slide are our coverage ratio and our capitalization ratio. Both of these metrics are above where we had forecasted at the beginning of the year and well on track for what the rating agency's expectations were. Just to note, we're actually meeting with the rating agencies at the end of this week, all three of them, to have a conversation and go through where we're at mid-year. So we expect that to be a good conversation. Now, to the discussion about cash on hand, what are we doing around receivables and?
Go back to that
Yeah.
other slide.
Yes, sir.
Can we get through the rest of the slides first? Because I think he's probably going to answer some of the questions that we've got.
Well, Dr. Mackey asked a question, and I took it from him that we could ask the slides were shown.
Yeah, let's go ahead. I'm sorry, I apologize. Let's go ahead and finish, and then you can go back and ask questions. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so in terms of working on those receivables, so baked into that 163 days cash on hand is a number of things, starting with the billing and assistance programs that we have. These are additional funds that are not making its way onto our financial metrics quite yet, but we built them into our forecast. At the time of our financials, we still had about $10 million of ARPA funds that have not yet been applied, which is additional money and cash that we baked into our forecast. REAP funds, as Rudy mentioned, there's still ongoing discussion with the city, but any additional contribution to REAP that then gets applied to customer bills is in fact money and revenue coming into CPS, which helps that cash position as well. And then for customers who, whether they qualify for assistance programs or not, they all have the options of payment plan programs. And this is a great tool for everyone. We've had this conversation before. What about folks that don't qualify but are still struggling a little bit? This is where those payment plan programs come into play. And I bring them up because, as we've always talked about, a last resort is pursuing disconnections. And I think that the board knows this, but for customers listening, with the milder temperatures, that's allowed our team to resume normal operations. And we've begun getting out in the community and actually pursuing disconnection on customers, over the last handful of weeks. And so it's probably more timely for us to reemphasize this for our listeners and our customers, that there are these tools out there, whether you qualify or don't qualify, to help manage your bill, through these different payment programs. And so, again, just to give note, to the board and to those listening, no one is surprised by a disconnection process. We have 5 bullets on here that speak to how we are communicating to our customers on every communication platform we know, to let them know of what the situation is. And it's really the customers, that we haven't heard from in 6-8 months that, we want to focus on and drive, drive those customers onto our phone lines, to our customer service, and get on plans. And in the brief time that Deanna and her team have been able to work disconnections, she's seen a pretty good response rate with customers, and I think that's a good sign. So, in the context of what our future cash position looks like, these are all the various activities that we anticipate working itself into making our metric where it is. That said, still acknowledging our cash position is still predicted to be lower from where we began our forecasted year. And so the last comment I'd point to on this slide here is really a measure of relative affordability. We all live here, we work here, we feel our bills going up in absolute terms. But we have to be conscious of what's going around us in the community or in the state of Texas. And what this slide shows us is that the rate of increase of our bills here in San Antonio is substantially less than what we're seeing in the rest of Texas. And to someone who may say, well, that we're one of the poorest cities in large cities in America. Absolutely right. So what you see for San Antonio, that $183, that is the cost of a bill for someone who doesn't qualify for a program. If you're one of our customers who qualify, that number is lower. It's reduced by the Affordability Discount Program. It can be lowered by REAP. But from a benchmark perspective, this is the consistent way you can hold us accountable on managing affordability relative to what's going on around us. I think also this is a testament to public power. Mayor, you just mentioned kind of the nature of our organization and the focus of public power. This is what public power has constantly demonstrated, is that our focus on affordability for our customers. So that, Chair, is my last kind of prepared comments. I know there's a lot to digest, but I appreciate the extra time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Kuczynski. Do we have any questions or comments? Mr. Steen?
So, Mr. Kuczynski, you do a really good job. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir.
Let's go back to this slide 7. And these are, of course, are the 3 key financial metrics for the credit rating agencies. And I found out something just few minutes ago. So you're meeting with the credit rating agencies, all three,
All three, yeah, end of this week.
end of this week? Is it a trip to New York?
No, they're just WebEx phone calls, which is what we've done pretty much since COVID.
So Dr. Mackey mentioned on that one slide about putting actual, and would you acknowledge that there's a good deal of subjectivity in a forecasted number? Just
By definition, yes, I would agree that there's
I agree
subjectivity in
by
our forecast.
definition. So when you're showing us the key financial metrics, why wouldn't you use instead of a forecast, why wouldn't you use the number at the end of the previous month, or at least provide it alongside the forecasted number?
We do have it in the appendix, and I could flip to that and pull the screen up if you would like.
Well, but I think in the same way that it's sort of, some people might say buried in the appendix, but I think when you're showing it like this, just the point that Dr. Mackey was making, you could put it as another column. I think it would put the board more in touch with what's happening right now as opposed to having it filtered through your forecast.
That's absolutely something we can do, Trustee Steen. I think for transparency, though, I will note that on the previous slide, I did point out our year-to-date cash on hand and compare it because I did want to focus on that.
Right. So the big three are cash on hand, and of course, and this is at the end of July, it was 123. We need to be at 150 at least. That's the threshold. So that's not good. Adjusted debt service coverage improved to 1.95. And would you please explain why it's up from last month?
Primarily, our revenues continue to be high, and that's driving a lot of that metric.
All right. And then as we've talked about the debt capitalization, we plan to be out of kilter on that. And so we're at 61%, but of course our threshold is 60%.
Yeah, I think.
So as you meet with these three credit rating agencies, you're going to have to tell them we're out of kilter on two or the three financial metrics.
I think just to clarify the intent of how we communicate with the rating agencies, they have seen our forecast from the rate case. They saw a higher debt capitalization number than we're showing, and we discussed with them our 5-year trajectory of bringing that number down. I would anticipate, and I can give feedback after the meeting, that when they see our metrics and our forecast, they will probably give us kudos for being below our forecast on this particular ratio, which I think is a net positive for us and for our customers just to be aware of.
And just as a result of these meetings, will they issue new ratings?
No, this is just a check-in with them. We'll have some transactions at the end of the year, and they'll typically review and then reaffirm or,
And that not only includes the actual the rating we get, but as we all know that 2 out of the 3 have given us a negative outlook. Is it possible that they would change the outlook?
I hope it's possible they change the outlook positive or at least neutral.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
did they do that as a result of the meeting this week?
They probably wouldn't do it just as a result of this check-in meeting, but it's something that we are actually going to discuss with them. So perhaps by the end of the year, as they reaffirm or relook at our ratings, that may be a possibility.
And Dr. Mackey, I've got some additional points. Does somebody else want to?
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
You want me to go ahead? Okay. So I understand that since our last regular meeting, the customer bad debt number has risen from 160 million to 175 million. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. And at our last meeting, we were told we had 180,000 customers who were at least 30 days past due on CPS Energy payments, and that represented about 20% of our customers. So as of July 31st, 2022, of course, 1 month later, what's the customer count and what's the percentage?
I'm going to let Deanna answer those.
Trustee Steen, we're seeing about 190,000 accounts that are past due. It didn't change the percentage all that much, but we can follow up and get you exactly what that is for the total customer base.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And Mr. Kaczynski, what percentage of the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds have actually been expended?
About 50%, but Deanna can tell you that it's 50%. Half 10 million. Yes. Yeah, and that's built into the days cash on hand 163 you see on the screen.
And I guess these are questions for Mr. Garza, but respectfully, based on statements earlier in the year, the amount and persistency of this bad debt has been unexpected. True?
as has the extreme heat that we've seen this summer, sir. So, yeah, I mean, it all works together.
All right, and I don't want to go over this again. You've told us in previous meetings what you're doing to tackle this problem. Anything new that you'd want to tell us
We're
about?
back to normal operations, which is what you've been, harping on, for the last few months. So we're back
this is-
to
Mr.
normal
Garza, this-
operations.
I don't
We're
think I'm-
disconnecting our customers that have not, proactively managed their past due balances. So we're doing the things that we said we were going to do. The moment that the temperatures allowed us to get back, to business, and this isn't a 10-month issue that, that I've been responsible for managing this year. This has been a 2.5-year issue going back to the pandemic. So we're getting back on track. The ARPA funding will help. We're gonna next month this month we're having a REAP board meeting. We will change the REAP guidelines that will allow us to provide an additional payment for customers who qualify. That will also dig into these dollars, and we're getting customers on payment plans. And so all of that activity, is the answer to how we get back on track. It's just took us a little longer for a lot of reasons this year than we anticipated to get back to it.
You can characterize what I'm doing as harping, but I think this is very important for the board to keep on top of this. And you told us at the beginning of the year that you would have this under control by the spring, and so that's why it's concerning me that we're rolling out of the summer, and it's the bad debt number's not only going down, it's going up.
As a percentage of customers who are past due, it's actually getting better. It's just the high bills have pushed more customers into that space, Mr. Steen. But, as a percentage, when you do the math, the actual percentage of customers who are past due the amount of revenue that's past due has gotten better. So we can show you those calculations, which all amounts to the team doing the job that we expect them to do, to reach out to every customer who will talk to us, and those who don't talk to us are going to get disconnected. And that's the way our process is supposed to work.
Well, if it doesn't get better, what will you do?
Ultimately, Mr. Steen, the board is, I'm accountable to the board for our operations. And as public power, I think we are appropriately, we're different from the private sector. Our processes for, what it takes to get to disconnection are probably a little, more, reasonable than what you see in the private sector. But we also, our customers also see us everywhere in the community and have, a number of ways to get to us. So ultimately, my job is to deliver what the rating agencies expect in terms of performance, and we will. We're just going to have to work really hard to get our customers who haven't, gotten caught up on a plan to get caught up. And that's what we're doing.
But again, I'll give you an opportunity. If this doesn't work, in other words, you've basically been telling us the same thing since the beginning of the year, that it would get better. It hasn't gotten better. So if it persists, what happens? What happens with this right now, $175 million of bad debt?
A lot of it will come in, Mr. Steen, because customers are going to get disconnected. So, there have been a lot of accounts. We've been sifting through accounts right now because they're just customers who don't exist anymore because of the pandemic. They went out of business. So there's going to be a number of accounts that we ultimately have to write off and that number's pretty significant. But again, what I've been saying all along is don't want to do that in the middle of the summer because they're just going to get right, back to where they were. So we're in the space now with things cooling down a bit in August and now moving towards the fall. This is a time we're gonna get into it. So I think the next few months will really kind of show us where we are. And again, going back to the rate case conversation, we talked about this at length with our city owners about, do we put some money into the rate case now? And we agreed that, the process should be for us to reinstitute disconnects and get back to normal operations and then see where we are and then to decide what the right solution is. And that could be a number of things. One of them is, what do we do in the next rate case as it relates to bad debt expense. That is a lever we did not pull during the last rate case, but had a very, very, distinct conversation about. So we're doing what we need to be doing to manage this metric in the right direction, and the next few months will tell us where we end up. We will know by the end of the third quarter, kind of where we stand in terms of our ability to cut into this metric.
All right, thank you.
Mayor.
No, I understand the tension, and I appreciate the approach. I do want to say that the city also has a role in this, and we'll work cooperatively with CPS. The truth of the matter is, if this was a mindless bureaucracy, we just start disconnections, and we never would have stopped them, frankly. But you've got thousands of San Antonio families who are one missed paycheck away from being evicted. And the cost of utilities are that difference maker for a lot of them. And so for the course of the pandemic and into the hot summer months where folks have seen these astronomical gas bills, you've had people that get behind on their payments. And so, if this was a private entity that only had the bottom line in mind, a lot of folks would have already been there. But we've got to be a little bit more thoughtful about that. Otherwise, not only will we be dispassionate about the people who own us, but we're also going to be creating a whole lot more downstream problems than we are capable of handling, frankly. There is a straight line between this gas crisis and the winter storm and the high energy bills that people across the state have experienced, and homelessness, frankly. And we know how difficult that issue is. So we've got to be thoughtful, we've got to be collaborative, we've got to work together as a city owner and the entity, and that's what I'm hearing month after month. If there was a simple solution to this, we'd have already done it. But we've got to work together to find it, and it's going to be a dynamic situation at least through the end of the year. But there's a lot of folks who are at the table trying to figure this out, not all just here in San Antonio. This is a federal issue as well, and we're going to get it solved, but we've got to do it in a compassionate way that recognizes the folks have experienced the most pain, have the least capacity to absorb it. Thank you, Chair.
Yes. This time, Trustee Romero.
Go ahead.
This has been really helpful, and I wondered if in the future, could we get a breakdown of the different categories of accounts that are in arrears? So for example, that whole category is an interesting one of commercial accounts where the commercial business doesn't exist anymore. Or for residential, if it's people who haven't paid anything in a year, or people who are always a month or two behind. Those are really different kinds of categories. So that would be helpful for me to.
Yes, ma'am, we can bring that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, if I can build upon that. So one of the questions I had for you was, I'm sure you do we keep track of the individuals that we've tried to contact knowing they're 2 months behind or 6 months behind and they just have not made any effort whatsoever? How many are those individuals? How percentage of those?
So it's a pretty small percentage. We've called over 90,000 customers to try and connect them with assistance. We've connected with, I believe, about 96% of those customers. There's a good chunk that just never return any phone calls, but we have that information, and that was some of the information that we worked with the city staff on.
Again, I think that's also a really good metric to demonstrate, because again, we can help those who don't want to help themselves, but we could definitely be available for those who want to help themselves, right? So I think it's important also that we emphasize, we still contacted those 200 people that, rain or shine, have refused to take any form of assistance, not necessarily a handout, but any program. Like you mentioned, we have several tools. And so I want to thank you again for presenting all the tools that we have to find a way to find payment plans or relief with an individual. My second question is, and it kind of goes back to our fiduciary responsibility that we keep hearing over and over as trustees. That's one of the number one things that we have to do. Well, what I understand, and if I understood this correctly, based on presenting to the organizations coming up, and this is more for Corey, back to the metrics that we currently have and the forecast and how we're performing, and then your feedback based on how eventually we'll be, evaluated, you feel pretty confident that the agencies are smart enough to understand that there are times in economy where you have to borrow a little bit more to get a little bit healthier, leverage borrowing a little bit more, because again, all the indicators will show that we will survive a downturn in the economy, and then we should be able, based on our historical credit history. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, ma'am, that is.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I'll just say on that note, Vice Chair Gonzalez, that, our last resort, to maintain our cash position where it needs to be is short-term debt. I'm just in general, I don't want to assume more debt than is absolutely necessary as a leader. Just fundamentally, that's kind of where I stand. But that is a lever. We didn't talk about it because it's the last resort. But I do believe the work that we're doing is going to get us where we need to be.
And it's understandable. I'm a business person. There are times you have to borrow more and invest more to be able to invest in the future, right? And from what I'm hearing, it's a combination of having to address the 2.5 years that we've endured. And it's also a testament to that we have the eye on the future as well. A lot of what we have talked about has been this new future, renewables and investments, and investing outside of the city of San Antonio to make sure that we can meet the demand. So it's always a fine balance between borrowing short-term or long-term, but it's a normal cost of doing business. But I do agree with Mr. Steen that we have to be mindful, and one of the biggest things is our financial responsibility, not just to the organization, but to the city's citizens of San Antonio. So I just want to make sure that we understand that this is just the way you do business. Of course, we got to be mindful and conservative, but at the same time, know that it's okay to borrow in the short term.
I'd like to thank you for all the board members have some good questions and comments. But Mr. Kuczynski, do you ever meet with the city CFO, Ben Gazelle?
Yes, we meet.
How often do you meet about this, our finances?
Our teams meet with his team every month religiously, going over everything, but in much more detail. And Ben and I talk much more frequently than.
Okay, but y'all meet at least once a month and going over all the details?
Absolutely, yeah. And I would say the team, the 100-plus financial services folks that we have are absolutely dedicated to that financial stewardship that the board is mentioning. And so thank you for bringing that up. And I know our team, is watching this today, and they have the best interest as well in mind. So I just wanted to give knowledge.
Well, I've been a part of several of those meetings, and I have a lot of faith in you and Ben in monitoring Mr. Gazelle in monitoring our budget, because I know one thing, he's no nonsense, and he is strictly catching every little detail that's going on with our budget. So I don't care who we appoint and what financial person we appoint and audit and all of this, but Mr. Gazelle and his team showed me when they went through this and shared with me some concerns about our finances when we were doing the rate case. I'm very pleased and happy about him reviewing this stuff, reviewing our financial information with us. That's number one. Number two, if you would put the actuals in the binder that you have that showed that and send that to every board member. So every board member can get this by the end of the week.
Yes, sir.
Breakdown by the end of the week.
Yes,
If you could do that, do that, please.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get the breakdown the way
Yes.
Dr. Romero.
Yeah, if we could get that by this. Yeah, but I'd like to have it by the end of the week, because we want to look at this. This company was traumatically hit with the pandemic and Uri. We were impacted by citizens of this community that we serve not being able to pay bills because they are tremendously impacted with this. Some people were without jobs, all kind of things happened in the last 3 years. I feel for the people. This is a business too. It's a public service and it's a business. We're doing a fine job of balancing this financials right here. Then we had Uri hit in February, another setback. Then we had the summer heat over 17 days in 1 month. It didn't start in July. It didn't start in June. It started 7 to 10 days in May, over 100 degrees. How many miracles are this company supposed to come up with? You can only do so much. And I feel like the CPS Energy team are doing a tremendous job. They're doing a tremendous job. And we're holding them accountable. So the questions up here are greatly rapport that you're doing a great job, but it's our job to question and stuff. But this is a formative evaluation right now. We only have 6 months of a formative, or where we at in 6 months, because the summative at the end, we want to be on par. And that's what I'm looking at the very end. But thank you for keeping us on the formative midterm of where we at, and then see where we be at the end of the year, the summative. That's where I want to make sure that we're in check and balance, and that we're seeing this information, because the correct information you give will give us the correct voting that we can give back to you all and support you all on the wonderful job that you all are doing. So thank you all for the great job. I appreciate it. And thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Chair Dr. Mackey.
Okay, we'll move on to convene to executive session. Ms. Ramirez, would you please take us into executive session?
Yes, sir. At this time, the board is going to recess into an executive session to discuss matters that have been duly posted under several provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including consultation concerning attorney-client matters under Section 551.071, deliberations and other authorization under real property, Section 551.072, prospective gifts or donations under Section 551.073, personnel matters including appointment of the president and CEO under Section 551.074, security personnel or devices under Section 551.076, to deliberate regarding security audits and devices under 551.089, to deliberate under Texas Government Code Section 418.183, subsection F, about confidential information under the Texas Homeland Security Act, economic development negotiations under Section 551.076, and to deliberate, vote, or take final action on competitive matters under Section 551.086. At the conclusion of executive session, the board will reconvene in open session and continue the meeting. It is 10:17 as we break for executive session.
At this time, we conclude to executive session. Thank you.
It is 11:08, and the board has concluded executive session. I can confirm that there were no votes taken and no matters were discussed that were not part of the posted agenda. We have Vice Chair Gonzalez, Trustee Steen, the Mayor, Trustee Romero, and yourself. All trustees are present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we move to item number 8, Rate Advisory Committee update. Dr. Francine Romero.
Thank you. So in the supplemental section, there are 2 reports from the 2 RAC meetings that have been held since the last time we met on July 21st and August 18th. And the RAC has been really busy working with and getting briefed by Charles River Associates on their approach to the generation plan, so that's been really helpful. There was also a subcommittee formed for the peer review to decide on the outside consultant for this whole process of generation planning. There were interviews held with 4 or 6. There were interviews held with various firms, and I attended all of those. Those were online interviews with the different firms who are vying for this contract. I did not participate in the peer review subcommittee decision on which was the best firm, but I was there for all the interviews. And in a second, I'm going to ask Lisa Lewis to present a summary of that entire procurement process, which we are voting on consent agenda. I just also wanted to point out that the group did a lot in terms of a dot plot exercise, which was a way to prioritize some of the items that Charles River Associates asked for feedback on, specifically in terms of the objectives that should inform the generation plan, and then in terms of specific generation preferences. So you can find our dot plots, and thanks to Ann Kennard for putting all that together in a variety of formats in the supplemental section in the reports. And we've also been discussing the timeline. We are hoping to have a recommendation from the RAC at our December board meeting, but that's still open because there's a lot of unknowns there. So I will ask Lisa to present that report, please.
To summarize briefly, the Rate Advisory Committee requested the ability to have a peer review entity that could assist them in analyzing the Charles River and Associates data independently. They worked, although they're doing this in a unique capacity as the Rate Advisory Committee, they did follow our protocols and requirements for procurement. We issued a request for qualifications. A subcommittee of the Rate Advisory Committee reviewed those qualifications, made a short list, took the opportunity to, as you put it, interview the top candidates, and made a selection. They submitted that to us. Again, we followed the standard process for that. And so today on your agenda is the approval to hire their selected entity to provide that support to them.
Thank you. Item number 9, approval of consent items. Minutes of special board meeting of the Risk Management Committee held on 5/31/2022. Minutes of the regular board meeting held on 6/27/2022. Payments to the City of San Antonio for July 2022. Procurement items, professional services, peer review services for RAC generation planning, which we just talked about. And the other one is general services, transmission, and advanced distribution management. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
We have a motion by Trustee Romero. Do we have a second?
Second, Trustee Gonzalez.
Second by Trustee Gonzalez. Do we have any comments or discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we have a regular agenda committee reports, Audit and Finance Committee, meeting held on 7/21/22. Item 10, Employees Benefit Oversight Committee, EBOC, meeting held on 7/21/22 by Mr. Steen. Would you like to put this in the minutes of the records, Mr. Steen?
Yes, Dr. Mackey, I would propose that we dispense with an actual report and then just submit the reports as they are as part of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Steen. That was item number 10. We have item number 11, Item number 11, recommendation regarding president and CEO selection, including president and CEO compensation package and contract discussion, and possible vote on Mr. Rudy Garza. As a company, CPS Energy has shown tremendous resilience, adaptability during the recent global pandemic. Even when faced with never-before-seen challenges, we persevered in our central goals in reliability, customer service, security, safety, environmental responsibility, and resiliency. As we navigate this most recent unusual cold winter and unusual hot summer, we had Rudy insightful and diligent leadership to ensure power was delivered with very few outages. As a keen contributor to CPS Energy in his early role as engineer, many could see Rudy's leadership skills. In addition to his engineering degree, Rudy also received a Master of Business Administration, providing excellent business acumen for his new leadership role. His commitment to solving problems as an engineer and effortless ability to collaborate with others lead Rudy to being noticed and commended for being exceptional. Now, as interim CEO, Rudy has continued to protect our most valuable asset, our brand, our reputation, and our employees. Rudy has relied on CPS Energy core values to guide him in carrying out the responsibility of this powerful organization. No matter our roles and responsibility, we must all act in accordance with the highest standards of business. None of us should accept anything less, and Rudy demonstrates the highest standards of excellency. Under Rudy's 5-year strategic plan, CPS Energy will continue to bring innovation and expertise to the community, state, and the country in setting high standards and delivering quality service. Living in this diverse time and place, Rudy's leadership reflects the community in which we all live and thrive. As the chairman of CPS Energy Board, I have full confidence in recommending Rudy Garza as the CEO and CPS Energy. Rudy's vision, passion for getting it right, ability to build a consensus with internal and external stakeholders help me and others to know this is the right time and Rudy is the right man for the job. I would like to move that we appoint Rudy Garza as CEO of CPS Energy. Is there a second?
Just a quick point of clarification, sir. Is your motion to appoint Rudy as the CEO and approve the contract?
Correct. Yes. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Willis Mackey. We have a second by Trustee Gonzalez. Now we have the floor open for discussion, comments and discussion. Okay, Mayor, please.
Sure, I'll just reiterate the great remarks that you made, Chairman. I agree wholeheartedly. I made most of my comments last time, Rudy, but you've been doing a fabulous job. Also appreciate the work of our hardworking employees. They are the lifeblood of this organization, and you've understood that from the very beginning. And I think that the public that we serve recognizes that, and when I hear the comments of employees in CPS, their confidence in you and in this organization has improved under your tenure so far, and look forward to that continuing. I also appreciate the work of the Personnel Committee, Janie, in particular on being responsive to public demands and how we move forward with appropriate compensation for the CEO next. I think this does that. I appreciate that and look forward to approving it.
Thank you. Any other question? Yes, Trustee Romero?
I also made my comments last time, but I echo what the mayor said, and I feel that we're getting not just a great CEO, but a great team that comes along with him. And I'm real excited to be facing the future here as the newest trustee with a permanent CEO. And also thanks to the committee, because that's a lot of work that the public does not see necessarily. And thank you for that. And I'm happy we are at this point today.
Trustee Steen.
Do you have comments? I'd like to be last, if that's all right.
No, you go ahead, Trustee Steen. All right.
The selection of a permanent CEO is perhaps the most important decision a board like ours makes. Given the very serious challenges CPS Energy is facing, I'd be hard-pressed to name a more consequential selection this board will make. So to say I'm disappointed with how this process has been handled is an understatement. Members of this board often stress that transparency is important, and I agree, so let me explain briefly how we got to where we are today. After our previous CEO announced her departure, this board at a special meeting held November 1st, 2021, appointed Rudy Garza interim CEO. I'm not sure why there was such a lengthy delay, but it wasn't until mid-May, that's almost 6.5 months later, that the firm of Russell Reynolds Associates was retained to conduct the search for our new CEO. I was neither provided an explanation of why this engagement was delayed over half a year, nor afforded the opportunity to vote on the hiring of Russell Reynolds. Thereafter, until our recent special board meeting on August 23rd, my only touch point with Russell Reynolds was when I was interviewed about the qualities I'd like to see in our next CEO. When the board met August 23rd, my expectation was that even though there'd been a protracted and inexplicable delay of 10 months, we were at last nearing the launch of our CEO search. Instead, the other trustees voted to halt the search and elect Mr. Garza. The decision was made without so much as considering a single other candidate, not one. To repeat, Russell Reynolds never launched its search and thus never offered up to us any candidates to whom Mr. Garza could be compared. And I would note that this is general knowledge that anyone interested can verify. I've got extensive experience in this area. For 40 years, I've served on various boards and commissions and have been involved in numerous high-profile CEO searches. For example, the searches for the Texas Department of Public Safety Chief and the Texas Higher Education Commissioner, and I've never seen a CEO search, especially one as critical to the future well-being of an organization, handled in such a shambolic fashion. I'm not sure I'm at liberty to comment directly on the compensation Russell Reynolds Associates receives for its fees, but it's generally known that most firms charge a percentage fee. On average, retained executive search fees are 1/3 of the candidate's first-year total cash compensation, plus search-related expenses. By that standard, Russell Reynolds is in line to receive hundreds of thousands of dollars. I now question whether hiring that firm was a prudent and justifiable expenditure. I suspect the one expectation associates of Russell Reynolds had when they arrived at our August 23rd meeting was that there had to be a reckoning on the CEO's compensation package before a high-profile search could be launched. Instead, they learned by watching the open session portion at the end of our meeting, like everyone else, that their services were essentially no longer required. I'm guessing they were as surprised by this outcome as I was. I remarked late last year when we were faced with the difficult task of finding our next CEO that the biggest challenge we encounter is getting any dynamic top-tier executive interested in the job given the compensation package. When you compare Mr. Garza's current compensation of $427,000 per year to comparable public-owned utilities or investor-owned utilities, it's not just low, but drastically low. I can quantify in detail what I mean by drastically low, but the data I've been provided is contained in a pamphlet that's been stamped by our general counsel as confidential competitive matters. I only wish I could prove my point to those of you listening to this meeting by giving you actual numbers. In any case, I suppose the members of the Personnel Committee found themselves in a bind. How are they going to attract applicants with a compensation package so drastically low? But instead of addressing this compensation issue head-on, they decided to truncate the CEO search before it ever started. It's interesting to note that it was Mr. Garza who stated emphatically during a board meeting earlier this year that it was he, as interim CEO, who eliminated the compensation at risk / incentive program, not only for his position, but also for senior management. Two things to consider. First, Mr. Garza eliminated the compensation at risk / incentive program, which effectively vitiated our CEO search process, but after he was selected on August 23rd, he was invited to negotiate and has negotiated a substantially higher compensation package for himself. Second, the elimination of our compensation / incentive program has contributed significantly to the worrisome exodus of senior management that's been occurring. Our top executives expect to be paid close to what their peers in the industry are paid, and when they're not, they leave. In summary, this process has been flawed from top to bottom, but allow me to move on to Mr. Garza's qualifications to be our permanent CEO. When our previous CEO departed somewhat unexpectedly, Mr. Garza received what some have called a battlefield promotion. Since taking the reins 10 months ago, he's had positive accomplishments. accomplishments. Probably his major accomplishment has been to keep the electricity on and the gas flowing during one of the hottest summers on record. It was a daunting challenge, and Mr. Garza's team rose to the occasion. On the other hand, he's had missteps, such as his inability to get a handle on the bad debt situation. I'm not going to repeat concerns I've detailed previously, but let's just say that our bad debt problem is not only not under control, it's getting worse. Since our last regular board meeting, that figure has increased from $160 million to $175 million. Management's approach isn't working well, and a recalibration or course correction has been slow in coming. So the results of Mr. Garza's 10 months as interim CEO have been mixed. I want to preface what I'm about to say by noting that I've known Rudy Garza for over 6 years and worked with him on a number of matters, and he's a fine person and capable executive. My concern is that his resume does not describe a person who's positioned himself to lead a $13 billion electric and gas utility. While Mr. Garza did obtain an electrical engineering degree from UT Austin, a notable accomplishment, his first job out of college was with TXU Energy, where he worked for 16 years and ultimately became their state advocacy director and chief lobbyist. His next job was with the city of Corpus Christi as director of intergovernmental relations and assistant city manager, which he held 4 years. In 2012, he came to work for CPS Energy as vice president of external relations and held that position until 2016. So for his first 20 years in the workforce, he was mostly involved with governmental relations. Indeed, if you survey his entire career, it's been in the fields of legislative affairs and community engagement, except for approximately 3 years in distribution services and operations. As far as I can tell, he has no experience in one of the most important and risky aspects of running a utility, and that's generation. Before he received his battlefield promotion 10 months ago, if you had asked someone in the industry about Rudy Garza, a likely response would have been, he's a superb government relations specialist, one of the best in the business. Through his governmental and community activities, he's contributed meaningfully to the welfare of CPS Energy, but these activities haven't adequately prepared him to be a CEO. Bottom line, I like and respect Rudy Garza and acknowledge and applaud his lobbying expertise. Lately, he's been a valuable part of our leadership team in his role as Chief Customer and Stakeholder Engagement Officer, but he's not the right person to lead CPS Energy during one of the most difficult periods in its 80-year history. I request that this statement be included in the minutes of today's meeting. Thank you.
It's a hard act to follow, huh? But on sincerity, thank you, Mr. Steen, for those well-thought written comments. I would wholeheartedly disagree with all of that. At the end of the day, we went through a very thorough process. It wasn't easy. We talk a lot about the salary cap, but at the end of the day, what this is really about is that when you're a certain skin color, you're never qualified. It's no different than the business community telling me that I'm not qualified to represent the business community because I own a small business and I'm not part of Valero. At the end of the day, you know, people, this is not a handout. Rudy is here because he earned this position, just like everybody out there who's sitting here and behind that glass. You're never going to do the job unless you get the opportunity to do so. He's educated. He is an advocate for our community, and we're in the people business. At the end of the day, I could have a degree in computer science, and I run a technology company. It doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, we're in the people business. And the people business means that we do right what's by people, not what's by us and what we think about our socioeconomic status or the privilege that some of us are born into. It's about earning a position of trust. And Rudy has earned a position of trust. And just because he has his position does not mean that it's going to be easy. He's going to have to earn it. Every day he shows up, he's going to have to make sure he does everything that's expected of him. And that is, again, the product mix, customer service, handling the debt that we have. I mean, these are all jobs he has to do. Just because he got here doesn't mean he gets to stay here. He has to earn this position. And I wholeheartedly believe that he will be judged harder because of his skin color. It will be tougher for him because, again, we're not what we're supposed to look like. But he will do a good job because he has the board and he has his staff behind him. And so I'm looking forward to leading with him, and I'm looking forward for fighting for the people of this city of San Antonio and Bexar County.
Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez. My exact point and sentiment of this board all had, that's the point of having a board. Everybody has a difference of opinion, and everybody has to vote and to make the decision that they think is best for the company. I had the opportunity to sit one day with Mr. Garza and to go and visit with him with other personnel. So I cannot say what everybody else think throughout this nation in this industry, but I can say one thing. I visit with the CEO of Energy about the companies, about their company compared to our company, and what transpires as far as all the things that we're enduring, they're enduring too. Same results. My question is this. This individual has known Rudy for 20-plus years, and I asked this individual, would you recommend Rudy to be a leader of CPS Energy? And they said, without question. This is Willis Mackey talking to the CEO of Energy in New Orleans. I visited with her about this, and she said yes. So I support Rudy in our recommendation, in the direction that we're going, and Ms. Gonzalez said it right. You know, he's been interviewed for the number of months that he's been on this job. It's been an interview process, but it's up to him to keep it. This board, not only the interest in Rudy, this board is interested in this community and making the best decision for CPS Energy and moving forward. That's keeping the lights on in the winter and keeping the lights on in the summer, especially in the winter and summer. And we've doing that. So thank you, because Rudy have the support of the employees, and the employees are the ones that are doing the job. Now, I want to say this. We can go out, and Ms. Gonzalez and I were on the personnel committee. Yes, it's right. We took our time because we thought thoroughly about this, about what's going on and what transpires. And then when we approached this meeting, we did not have an idea which direction to go. So we did not select Rudy at the last board meeting. We suspended the search. The selection is today, whether this board votes on that and direction that this board votes. So it's our job to do this. But the employees of CPS, you all are the ones that are doing this. Rudy is just a leader and making decisions and supporting you all for doing a great job. And that's what I'm going by. When I looked at last board meeting and all the linemen and the people that were out there supporting on their lunch break, and the number of people that are here, that I hear supporting Mr. Garza, it's up to him to keep the job. He has a job to do. And just as easy as this board vote to vote him in, it'd be as easy as the board to vote him out. Because look at the number of people who couldn't even last throughout this nation 1 month, 1 year throughout this nation on new employees as CEOs. It happens every day. It happens every day. But I know one thing, we have great employees here, and if everybody on this board know what I know, they're not gonna let Rudy fail. They're gonna support him because he's a good man and he has a good heart for this community and for this electric business. At this time, we have a motion by Willis Mackey, we have a second by Trustee Gonzalez. We have the roll call for vote. Ms. Ramirez.
Vice Chair Gonzalez? Yes. Trustee Steen?
No.
Mayor?
Aye.
Trustee Romero?
Yes.
Chair Dr. Mackey?
Aye.
4 to 1, the ayes carry.
Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, Rudy's the new CEO. Let's move to the next item, number 12, procurement item, General Service Weatherization Program. Mr. Rick Luna and Jesse Hernandez.
Good afternoon, trustees. We have today a procurement item for your consideration related to our weatherization services in support of our STEP program. And I'll be delivering the first portion of this to talk to you about how the procurement fits into our overall program for energy efficiency and conservation, and how this supports equity for our customers. And then I'll turn it over to Jesse Hernandez, who oversees the implementation of weatherization, and he will share details of the RFP evaluation process we followed, as well as the proposed funding request that we have today for your consideration. At bottom there, it says, the key thing is that this item allows us to continue weatherizing homes for our customers who have the greatest need. You'll recall that the board and the city council approved our new program back in June. That has now taken effect as of August 1st. And I want to focus in today because a lot of the discussion that we'll be having is really around bill savings and equity for our customers. Those were two of the preeminent goals that we established. We also established metrics around how we measure that, and I'll call out the 16,000 homes that we committed to weatherize over the next 5 years. All of that included in the $350 million budget, which was approved by the board and the city council. So today's request is aligned with that overall goal that we established. What we're asking you for is a one-year contract with Franklin Energy to continue to provide those services. Now, this one-year term is purposeful, and that is to give us time to restructure the weatherization program and the delivery model that we use, really geared around creating more opportunities for local businesses to participate in the program, as well as reconsider the measures that we do in customer homes. All of that will take time to build out. And so what we're asking for is effectively a bridge. This one-year bridge contract allows us to do that and then bring that forward to you at a later date. So in the meantime, with the approval, we will be able to weatherize 3,200 homes over the next year, which is 1/5 of our goal. And so it does get us started on that process, but again, allows us the opportunity to come back to you with a redesigned weatherization program. Just a reminder that when the board and the council approved funding for the new program, that was set at $350 million. That encompassed a number of categories of programs there that we've detailed. So energy efficiency, weatherization, demand response, a number of new programs we're creating, and then administration and marketing. Last month, we were before you asking for approval on the energy efficiency piece, which you did approve $92 million out of the 350 for energy efficiency, and that's been put into effect. What we're back for today is on the weatherization piece. We're asking for $20 million, or 5.7% of the overall budget, that would allow us to, again, continue this program. Important message here is that the funding that we're requesting has already been approved. What we're really asking for is procurement authority to be able to expend those funds in the amount of $20 million. We also showed this slide last month, which details how we're going to roll out the programs as we go forward. Again, the new program took effect August 1st, so we're a month into this. On the far left, you'll see there where it says immediate. Our first priority was to continue the proven programs. So energy efficiency, again, you approved that last month. Demand response was already in flight, and we've put a number of those contracts in place. Today, we're asking for weatherization. So this allows us to complete sort of the immediate actions that allow us to continue our programs. Over the next several months, we'll begin to roll out some of the new elements. And what we've done, highlight there with green boxes, is to show you the equity pieces of the program. And the main point here is that we made a major commitment to promoting equity. This is a first step to do that. We'll be back, though, with more, including we have talked about multifamily weatherization, additional solar, community solar options, and so forth. So there will be more to come, but this is an important first step that gets us down this path. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse. He's going to come up and he's going to talk to you about the details of the program as well as the request today.
Thank you, Rick. Good afternoon, trustees. So moving on to our Casa Verde program. So the program, it's a mature program. It's been around for over 10 years. And during that time, we've been successful in weatherizing through our STEP program nearly 30,000 homes. It was designed to help our most vulnerable customers to help them be more comfortable in their home. We're able to get customers energy efficient upgrades at no cost to them, including attic and wall insulation, LED light bulbs, among other things. Really just to increase the comfort in the summer, keep them cooler in their homes, in the winter to keep it warmer inside their homes. But the biggest benefit above all that is that customers on average are saving about $450 annually on their CPS Energy bill. So as Rick highlighted, we're wanting to support equity, And so we've been, over the past several months, we've been meeting with various stakeholders, including members of the CAC, the RAC. We met individually with some council members as well to get some feedback. And we wanted to make sure that we're looking at taking a data-driven approach. So what does that mean? We're looking at data, for example, Bexar County Appraisal District data, looking at square footage of homes, energy consumption, to overlay that to see where the greatest need is within our community. Additionally, we're cognizant that energy burden is big in some cases here in San Antonio, so we're also expanding our eligibility for the program that's currently at 200% of federal poverty level, but we're also going to put in the application process an energy burden calculator. So we can calculate that in every application that applies, and even if they don't meet that 200% criteria, they would still be eligible for weatherization services. Also looking at other like low-income programs in our community. And so we're going to pre-qualify those customers that are also receiving other type of assistance within our community, whether it's local assistance, for example, like our REAP program, or state or federal assistance as well. We would auto-qualify them for Casa Verde. And then expanding our partnerships. We're working with local organizations to not only help us do the outreach and get the word out, but also if they have like-minded customers that might benefit from the program, we're reaching out to them and building those partnerships via MOUs so that we can make that enrollment process easier for our customers. So for the RFP that we put out for this process, we had a total of 8 respondents. Out of the 8 that we received, 6 were brought in for interviews. The 2 that weren't selected was because they didn't meet the criteria, so that's the reason they weren't brought in. But we got good respondents that were part of the biggest national implementers. And the things that we looked at, you see here, we wanted to make sure they had good safety performance record, good experience in weatherization, and then overall cost and value and community impact. So the funding breakdown that we're asking for, Rick mentioned the $20.2 million. It's important to note here that 90% of that expense is going directly towards customers' homes for materials and installation services. So about $18 million of that is going to be spent directly with our customers. The other $2 million is going to go to more administrative functions to do outreach events so we can promote the program and get customers to sign up for Casa Verde. We're also going to be using it for collateral and campaigns, and then also help verify that those customers that do apply are eligible for the program. And then customer support, where we would have an established call center to take customer calls, to answer any questions they might have, and then quality control to make sure that we have a team that's going to be going into the customers' homes, checking the work that the contractors are doing to make sure that it's the good work that we're paying for. And then again, that's what the $2 million would go towards. As part of this RFP, the prime contractor, which is Franklin Energy, would hire a total of 16 employees here locally, but also the subcontractors would hire approximately 150 employees to do the work. And these are the 5 contractors or subcontractors who are currently part of our Casa Verde program, and they would continue to be as they are today. This contract will support approximately 166 local jobs. You saw this slide a couple of times already, but again, to reiterate, this is part of the $350 million budget that you have previously approved, and we're carving out for request today for approval is the $20.2 million that would be specifically for weatherization, and it aligns with the overall budget that, again, has already been previously approved. And lastly, we would respectfully ask for your approval for weatherization funding for up to $20.2 million that would be going to Franklin Energy Incorporated, again, as part of the $350 million that you previously approved for our overall STEP program. This would be a 1-year contract that would allow us to go to our restructured weatherization program. As you saw in the previous slide from Rick as well, we're going to be evolving our program over the next several months, and so there'll be more to come for you to see. But for now, we wanted to be able to continue to weatherize customers' homes, and this will get us on our path to do that today. Thank you.
Mayor.
Let me first move approval, and then I'll ask my questions.
Second.
So,
by the mayor, right?
Yeah.
Second by SD.
I think somebody turned up my mic. I'll move it away. So Rudy and I were having a conversation on the side here just a minute. Obviously, the weatherization has been a big subject of conversation for a lot of reasons, but in particular for the city council. Some of the highest yield in terms of demand reduction also helping folks who have seen those high bills in a low and moderate income community. So getting that programming out to them as quickly as possible is really important. Question I asked Rudy, if you can maybe elaborate on, is the scope of this contract will help us to understand what is the current need and capacity, how many rooftops are out there that need this kind of service, and how much estimate would it cost to reach them all? Is that, are those some of the questions that you'll be addressing?
Absolutely. That's something we're going to be looking at. We know that there's capabilities within the city of San Antonio and Berg County, so we're going to be looking at that, see what the need is in our community. We have some data, but once we get the additional data that I mentioned from Berg County, we're going to see what else the need is, and we'll be able to scope that out. And also talking to the contractors. I've been having conversations with them, and we want to know what job force is available here to do the work, and that we have enough people to be able to do that.
So I would ask that we have some dialogue when we get that information back with the city council. We committed here at this body to make steps more of a dynamic program so that we're coming back to the body and making adjustments as necessary. We can change it on the fly if it shows that we can get more bang for our buck and weatherization. We put a little bit more through if we have the capacity to do that. And the reason why I ask that is there's also the conversation about the rebate. And just for you all to know, if we do go the route of a rebate and the council approves it, one of the things that we've added to that element is an opt-out. We know that there are many residents and businesses who would rather that money go to a program like the weatherization. So having that opt-out would allow us to have some more dollars sitting there when we do get those answers, in the event that we can put more through that pipeline for weatherization.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you.
My questions would be more along Franklin. Before I go with Franklin accountability, would be where would this fall under what committee? If I wanted more frequent reports, monthly reports, especially on the assessment of what really is the need out there.
Well, ops oversight would be, the best committee because that's where customer, and all the operational stuff goes through.
Well, everything
so,
seems to be going to Dr. Francine and I. Do you want to tackle that on too?
Yeah.
We'll tack it along. We're the busiest committee. So in all sincerity, I would really want, if Dr. Romero is okay, through that committee to go ahead and get frequent reports. I'm very curious about the need versus what we could afford and what results we're generating. Because I do want to make more frequent pivots if it's not meeting the need that it needs, because we do have the financial burden that we're carrying also. So we got to balance that out. And so definitely in the committee, and then I definitely want to make sure that Franklin does what they say they're going to do. And so I also want reports from them directly and not just through y'all. Because I haven't seen them at any meeting.
Yes, Dr. Romero.
I just want to make sure I understand the logistics of all this. It seems like there's some people that you contact who pre-qualify, and maybe they get a letter or a phone call from CPS that says, we think you qualify for this. And then on the other hand, there's people who just think they qualify and they can contact you and go through the process. Is that correct?
There's a multifaceted approach, and there's probably 3 different ways for me to explain. The first one is outreach. Rudy mentioned we're out in the community, we're out promoting the programs, designing customers up as they come to us. The second one is the auto enrollment partnerships that we have through MOUs or through other programs where we do send, for example, we have an MOU with CareLink. Those customers that come to us, they send us a customer list, and then we send them a letter saying, hey, customer, you qualify for this program. We send them a brochure about what it is, and then if they want to participate, they let us know, and then we start that process. And then additionally, as we go on through the new program, through Energy Bearing, as we assess the data, we're also sending letters to those customers and let them know that they might qualify and enroll them into the program.
Okay, but it kind of seems like everybody has to fill out an application at some point, and I was just wondering if people need help with the application, is that available for them?
Yes, we help customers every single day fill out applications. And so if they come to us at one of our events, yes, they do fill out an application, and we have bilingual team members from my team that are there to help them. If they go to our walk-in centers, we have people there that can help them fill out an application there as well. But through the auto-enrollment process, they don't necessarily have to fill out an application because we would already have all their information, and then we would just send them the information on the actual program to see if something that they would be interested in.
Okay, and then last question, do you already have a waiting list from last time, or are you starting this anew?
We actually do have a waiting list, so we have approximately 1,800 customers that are ready to go. So we'll hit the ground running as soon as if the board's leisure and they approve this today, then we'll hit the ground running and we'll be weatherizing homes within the next week.
Thank you. We have a motion by the mayor. We have a second by trustee Romero. This is a procurement item, general services weatherization program. Can we have the roll call, Ms.?
Vice Chair Gonzalez?
Yes.
Trustee Steen? No. Mayor?
Aye.
Trustee Romero?
Yes.
Chair Dr. Mackey?
Aye.
4-1, the motion carries.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn. Who would like to move to adjourn?
I would like to move to adjourn.
Trustee Gonzalez, motion for adjourn. We have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Romero. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all and have a wonderful